What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. My name is Patrick Siepman, and we got a loaded show for you guys today. As J.J. McCarthy, he's going viral on Twitter. Some people think he looks chubby. Some people think he looks ready to go. We'll dive into that first here on today's show. But also Jonathan Greenard. He was snubbed from the ESPN top 10 edge rushers in the NFL list. And then finally, PFF. I think they disrespected the Vikings offensive line just a little bit, so we'll tackle all three of these stories on today's show. But first with J.J. McCarthy, his fiance posted this picture yesterday, and everybody is saying, oh, J.J. McCarthy looks out of shape. People are taking jokes at him on Twitter and everything, and I just think it's nonsense. Just keep your mouth shut. Because if you guys remember, Week 18 against the Detroit Lions, everybody's like, oh, J.J. McCarthy looks too skinny. So he looks too skinny. He looks too chubby. Everybody's got an opinion on the Vikings starting quarterback. And, honestly, I like JJ adding some weight. He's going to be able to take some hits like we've seen, like guys like Patrick Mahomes. He went viral the other day for having his shirt off on a boat. And people were saying, even a Kansas City Chiefs radio host was saying, oh, he looks a little chubby. He looks a little fat. I like the quarterbacks that have a little extra weight on them. They can take hits. Hopefully it helps them stay healthy. But, again, it gets down to this. Everybody has something to say about J.J. McCarthy, whether that's good, whether that's bad, even though the last couple of months it's been more negative. But I said we show him some love to start off today's show. Type those nines down below in the comment section. Can't wait to see him week 1 versus Chicago Bears in his hometown. And also J.J. looks like he's maybe pushing about 215, 220 in those photos, which I think is fantastic news for us Vikings fans. But type those nines down below. Just one little quick thought here. J.J. McCarthy has to be the most over-criticized quarterback to never take an NFL regular season snap. Like, everybody's got an opinion on this guy. Everybody thinks it's going to probably fizzle out. Why did they let go of Sam Darnold? Everybody has something to say on J.J. McCarthy, and he is a polarizing player because even dating back to his days at Michigan, people really, had mixed feelings about him. It was like, oh, is he really that good of a quarterback, or was it the support system? Was it the organization that Michigan football was? And everybody always says this. What if J.J. McCarthy is a bust when they're talking about the Minnesota Vikings heading the next season? Almost the consensus is the Vikings do have a very stacked roster. Obviously, have a great coaching staff, but it all comes down to the quarterback, and everybody's just like, oh, what if J.J. McCarthy doesn't work out? Well, what if he does? What if he ends up being a top 10 quarterback? What if he ends up having a Jaden Daniels, C.J. Stroud-esque first year starting? Then how are we talking about this football team? We're probably saying they have a chance to go win a Super Bowl this season. But JJ, he's going to be a polarizing player throughout this year. And also, I made this take on a show about 2 weeks ago saying that even if he is successful and the Vikings are winning games and he's putting up good numbers, I don't think it's going to change. I think he's going to get very similar treatment to a guy like Brock Purdy when he first came in the league. I mean, first year starting, made the NFC title game. He was playing great football, and he's a top 12-ish quarterback in the league. But people still chalk it up to Kyle Shanahan, all of the weapons where, in reality, Purdy's just a good player, and I think the same thing will be said about JJ. But let's dive into what ESPN had to say about Jonathan Greenard here. They're going over their top 10 edge rushers in the league, and no Vikings were on that list, even though both their edge rushers combined for 25 sacks this past season, but this was their top 10 list. They did have Myles Garrett at number 1. No disputing that. Honestly, I'm not disputing anybody in the top 6 here. I think that's pretty undisputed. Those are the top 6 edge rushers in the league. Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, Nick Bosa, and Trey Hendrickson. But then there is some debate with 7 through 10. Now, if I was making this list, I would probably have Jared Verse at number 7 and then move down Aiden Hutchinson, Will Anderson, and Danielle Hunter. But I would probably say Jonathan Greenard should get the nod over at least one of Will Anderson or Danielle Hunter. I'd probably lean Danielle, but the fact that he wasn't in the top 10, I think is criminal. But he was in the honorable mentions list with Brian Burns, Nick Benito, obviously Jonathan Greenard, and then George Karlaftis. But even Brian Burns, I think, is getting a little underrated here. Like, I can make an argument for Greenard and Burns being ahead of Danielle Hunter. And, I understand Aiden Hutchinson, he was awesome before he got hurt, but he is coming off a major leg injury. I think if I was making that list, I'd probably have Jared Verse 7, put Greenard, and then, maybe like Danielle Hunter, Will Anderson to kind of fill out the rest of the list. But Greenard should be in the top 10, and he's had one of the best 2 years runs at the edge rusher position. 24.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. He's great in the run game as well, which is definitely an underrated part of his game. This past year, 4 forced fumbles. That's fantastic stuff. That's what you want out of your, top edge rusher, that blue chip guy. And I will say I was completely wrong about Greenard honestly throughout the majority of the season for the Vikes. I was saying, this defense, yes, they're playing top 5 football, but they don't really have a blue chipper. I was completely wrong on that. Jonathan Greenard is a blue chipper. I think he's the best player on a defense that was top 5 in the league last year, should be top 5, if not top 3 again this upcoming season. And also, Andrew Van Ginkel not even being an honorable mention is absolutely ridiculous. Now, I don't know if this is because he is not that prototypical hand in the dirt defensive edge or defensive end where he is, stopping the run. He's just getting to the quarterback. Like, he plays, multiple positions on defense. But, this stat from him this past season is ridiculous. He's the only player in NFL history to record 10-plus sacks, 75-plus tackles, and have 2 pick sixes in a single season. That should be enough to at least get him an honorable mention on the top 14 edge rushers in the NFL. But it always comes back to this. With people disrespecting the Vikings this entire offseason, I just have a question. How did the Vikings win 14 games? Because even PFF puts out their top 10 head coaches in the NFL. Kevin O'Connell's not on there. We went through top 10 defensive lines, according to PFF. Vikings came in at 16. PFF had them at the 27th best secondary. And now ESPN doesn't have Van Ginkel or Greenard in the top 10 edge rushers. So how did they have a top 10 or top 5 defense last year? How did they win 14 games? I have no idea. But again, it's just more Vikings disrespect that we're used to. And also ESPN, they put out an article grading every team's offseason. They had the Vikings at a C+. Probably do a full show on that later on. But let me ask you guys this. Former Viking, Danielle Hunter, and now current Viking, Jonathan Greenard. Who do you guys think is better? Now, I hate putting this up here because I was the biggest Danielle Hunter fan ever since he was a second-round pick out of LSU. I was always rooting for the guy, one of the freakiest athletes, and he's honestly got one of the most creative bags as an edge rusher. Like, his pass rush moves are just very unorthodox. So I would probably still lean Greenard on this one, but hey, you guys let me know. Give me a 55 for Hunter or give me a 58 for Jonathan Greenard. Now we'll talk about what PFF had to say on the Vikings offensive line here in just a second. But I got to tell you guys about a new product here at Vikings Now, and that is Factor Form. Now start your day right with Daily Greens by Factor Form at factor75.com/VikingsChat to get 40% off plus free shipping on your first order. Now I have tried greens drinks in the past, and I swore I was never going to try them again until I tried Factor Form's Daily Greens, and it completely changed how I viewed drinking greens every single morning. And let's be honest, most of us dread drinking greens, but Factor Form changed the game. You actually crave your greens as a sister brand of Factor Meals. Factor Form was designed to work hand in hand with your meals, making better nutrition effortless. Daily Greens is a greens powder by Factor Form you look forward to drinking. Just one scoop delivers 100% of your daily nutrients, filling nutrient gaps, supporting whole body health, and helping you feel your best. My favorite part of Daily Greens by Factor Form is that in a blind taste test, Daily Greens ranked number 1 in taste, texture, and aroma, beating out the biggest names in the industry. So start your day right with Daily Greens by Factor Form at factor75.com/VikingsChat to get 40% off plus free shipping on your first order. That's factor75.com/VikingsChat. For 40% off plus free shipping. Click that link in the comment section and description of today's show, factor75.com/VikingsChat. All right, so our good old friends over there at PFF, they're ranking the Vikings offensive line, and I don't think they were incredibly disrespectful when coming out with this list, but I do think they're undervalued. Now, here was their top 10. I have no issues with the top dog. Philadelphia Eagles, undisputed, best offensive line in the league. I was a little shocked that our division rival, the Detroit Lions, were not on this list. I understand. They lost some guys this offseason, especially with Ragnow retiring. That was definitely a big hit. But Denver Broncos 2, that's fine. Buffalo Bills at 3. Talk about the Bears here in a second at 4. I think that's ludicrous. But having the Colts at number 5 when the Vikings took 2 of their better offensive linemen, honestly, they're second and third best outside of Quentin Nelson. I think that's a little crazy. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's fine. Falcons, that's cool. New York Jets have an incredibly underrated offensive line. Honestly, I think the Chargers might be a little too low. They picked up Mekhi Becton this offseason. They also still have Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. But my biggest problem with this list is the goddamn Chicago Bears at number 4. And just enough with the Bears love. This happens every single offseason. where we get to July and everybody is just freaking out over the Bears offseason. We're saying, oh, they're one of the best offseasons in NFL history. They got Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman. I understand Thuney, one of the best guards in the league still, but he's getting older. Jonah Jackson, who knows if that guy's good anymore? And also Drew Dahlman, hey, he's good with the Falcons, but now he just got paid in a new system. And also the Bears, they're having a competition at left tackle right now. The fact that they're number 4, I think is a little crazy. And plus Darnell Wright, solid right tackle, no doubt about it. But he's on the same level as a guy like Brian O'Neill. And with everything the Vikings have done, I just can't really see an argument where you're saying, hey, I'll take the Bears offensive line over the Vikings offensive line. But this is what PFF had to say on him, saying although Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill formed a top-notch tackle duo over the past couple of seasons, the Vikings interior held back the unit and the Vikings offense overall. Minnesota will feature 3 new starters along the interior in 2025, looking to turn a weakness into a strength. Center Ryan Kelly just turned 32 and is still among the best players at his position when healthy. Right guard Will Fries was on his way to a breakout season in 2024 before an injury ended his year after 5 games. Rookie Donovan Jackson, whom the Vikings drafted in the first round, completes the pack. And I just think if you look at this offensive line on paper, and obviously health is a major factor here, but this is an undisputed top 5 line in the league. Like, I think you have a top 5 center. I think you got 2, depending on if Donovan Jackson works out and Will Fry stays healthy, I think you got probably a top 10 guard combo in the league, and then you for sure have a top 5 tackle duo in the NFL. And plus all of these guys, there is some chemistry there even though they're new. Like Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, they have that chemistry from back in Indy. And then I would have to imagine Donovan Jackson and Christian Darrisaw have some pretty good chemistry right away. But I think the Vikings offensive line is the most improved group from last season, just in terms of the Vikings. Like, if you guys remember, when Christian Darrisaw went down, the Vikings won 9 straight games where I thought the season was over after that Thursday night game. I was like, all right, we lost Darrisaw. Maybe it was a little bit of a fluky run. We'll probably go 9-8, 10-7, but that ended up not being the case. And just looking back at this line from 2024, I don't know how the Vikings won 14 games with this unit. Like, Dalton Reisner still isn't signed. Garrett Bradbury was cut. Blake Brandel, a solid backup interior offensive lineman. And then Cam Robinson was just able to get a 1-year deal. So I just don't understand when people are talking about the Vikings, and especially these offseason moves, how you not look at that offensive line and be like, that should be one of the best units in the league. And also, the biggest addition out of every move any team has made this offseason, the biggest addition is just the Vikings getting Christian Darrisaw back. This is a top 3 left tackle in the league. This guy held down that left side of the offensive line for the last, ever since he came in the league since 2021. And this guy, he's just been consistent. He has been fairly healthy besides this past year. He's been, dinged up a couple of times, but nothing too concerning. But still, remember that 2022 season, his sophomore campaign? Trent Williams was calling him a young version of himself after that season. And I just think that Darrisaw, just having him back, should really just complete this offensive line and all the free agency additions. And it should just be a very, very solid group heading into next season. But he's almost back. Hopefully he's back for week 1. But if he's not going to be the end of the world. You got Justin School to fill in. But let's show Christian Darrisaw some love on today's show. Type those 71s down below. And also make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. We'll see you guys next time. As always, Skol Vikes.